Dr. Manali. Today I'm going to be talking about good fat versus bad fat, or unhealthy fat versus healthy fats. I know it can be confusing because there's a lot of conflicting information in the news. Every time a new nutrition study comes out, is fat good for you? Is fat bad for you? How are you supposed to know? With so much conflicting information out there. And so I'm going to go over that. Sometimes, the reason partially that's true is because nutrition data can be high quality or low quality. And, the low quality data is less reliable, but it's still there. And then also, there are always going to be outlying studies. So what I recommend is we look at is what the majority of high quality nutrition data shows, and then but we still have to know that low quality or those outlying studies are there, and they may show something different than what the majority of data shows. And the other thing to consider is how, their total fat, when you look at the nutrition label or you're looking at nutrition information online, is broken down into different types of fat. And so we have to be able to interpret what that means. And so when you look at it, when you're at the grocery store, you should be looking at the nutrition label and you should look at the total fat. But also, if you go to a lot of fast food or fast casual restaurants, everyone from Taco Bell to Panera puts their nutrition information online. And you can also look at how it's broken down online before, you go there when you're there, so you can see what are better options as far as fat content. And so the first thing to look at is when you look at the total fat, the amount of the total fat that's broken down into, the first thing is polyunsaturated or monounsaturated fat. Now those are good fats and those are healthy for you. So if the total fat is primarily made up of polyunsaturated or monounsaturated fat, then that's good for you and that's something you should probably be eating. And the second thing to look at is the trans fatty acids. Now in the US, for the most part, the FDA has prohibited partially hydrogenated oils, so you're not going to really see a lot of trans fatty acid food in restaurants or in at the grocery store. You're more likely to see it worldwide, but also you can see it still in some foods. There are some types of ghee that are high in trans fatty acids, also commercially baked goods, deep fried food, a lot of times street food. If you thought deep fried Oreos were healthy for you, they're not. But most these are things to look for that can be high in trans fatty acids, and you should try to limit or generally avoid these types of foods. One key, it could be like if you look at the nutrition information, it has the words partially hydrogenated in it. But these types of foods have foods high in trans fatty acids have been linked to an increased risk of developing heart disease, so that's why you should try to limit or avoid them altogether. Now the third thing to look at is in the breakdown of total fat is saturated fat. That's usually recently where the most nutrition studies have showed conflicting information. Is this saturated fat healthy for you or unhealthy for you? And if we look at the majority of data right now, it shows that it is unhealthy for you because it can increase your risk of developing risk factors like high cholesterol for heart disease, risk factors for heart disease. And so generally it's unhealthy for you and you should limit your intake. Now there are some outlying studies, there are quite a few outlying studies showing that it could be healthy for you, but overall the majority of data is showing that it's unhealthy for you. So for now you should try to limit your intake, and over time I think most data is still showing that, and so I would recommend just generally you should limit your intake of saturated fat. Now, the fourth thing to look at is that, I think in the 80s or some point previously, a lot of, there was a big push towards fat-free or low-fat foods, and what ended up happening is to make the food taste better, manufacturers increased the amount of sugar. So if you have, if you eat something that's fat-free, but it's high in processed sugar or carbs, then it's equally unhealthy for you. So it didn't become any healthier for you if, the fat became low, but the sugar became high. It's unhealthy for you in that, you're more likely to develop risk factors for heart disease, but also if you're trying to lose weight, that's not going to help you out either. So you should generally, if you look at the nutrition label, and even if it says fat-free or low fat, but then you look at the sugar content, which is on the nutrition label as well, and it has a high amount of sugar, then you should put that food back because it's still unhealthy for you. And so just because there's fat-free on the label doesn't automatically make it healthy. That's all for today. For more videos, like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Manali Desai. I'll see you next time.